Part 3, Chapter 6, Sections 2b and 3 of The Possessed by Fyodor Dostoyevsky, translated by Constance Garnett. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Expatriate in Bangor, Maine. Part 3, Chapter 6, A Busy Night, Section 2b. "Give me the pen," Kirillov cried suddenly, quite unexpectedly, in a positive frenzy. "Dictate, I'll sign anything. I'll sign that I killed Shatov even. Dictate while it amuses me. I am not afraid of what the haughty slaves will think. You will see for yourself that all that is secret shall be made manifest, and you will be crushed. I believe, I believe." Pyotr Stepanovitch jumped up from his seat and instantly handed him an inkstand and paper, and began dictating, seizing the moment, quivering with anxiety. "I, Alexey Kirillov, declare..." "Stay, I won't. To whom am I declaring it?" Kirillov was shaking as though he were in a fever. This declaration and the sudden strange idea of it seemed to absorb him entirely, as though it were a means of escape by which his tortured spirit strove for a moment's relief. "To whom am I declaring it? I want to know to whom." "To no one, every one, the first person who reads it. Why define it? The whole world." "The whole world! Bravo! And I won't have any repentance. I don't want penitence, and I don't want it for the police." "No, of course. There's no need of it. Damn the police! Write, if you are in earnest," Pyotr Stepanovitch cried hysterically. "Stay, I want to put at the top a face with the tongue out." "Ech, what nonsense!" cried Pyotr Stepanovitch crossly. "You can express all that without the drawing, by the tone." "By the tone? That's true. Yes, by the tone of it. Dictate, the tone." "I, Alexey Kirillov," Pyotr Stepanovitch dictated firmly and peremptorily, bending over Kirillov's shoulder and following every letter which the latter formed with a hand trembling with excitement. "I, Kirillov, declare that to day, the of October, at about 8 o'clock in the evening, I killed the student Shatov in the park for turning traitor and giving information of the manifestoes and of Fedka, who has been lodging with us for 10 days in Filipov's house. I am shooting myself to day with my revolver, not because I repent and am afraid of you, but because when I was abroad I made up my mind to put an end to my life." "Is that all?" cried Kirillov, with surprise and indignation. "Not another word!" cried Pyotr Stepanovitch, waving his hand, attempting to snatch the document from him. "Stay!" Kirillov put his hand firmly on the paper. "Stay, it's nonsense. I want to say with whom I killed him. Why Fedka? And what about the fire? I want it all, and I want to be abusive in tone, too, in tone." "Enough, Kirillov, I assure you it's enough!" cried Pyotr Stepanovitch almost imploringly, trembling lest he should tear up the paper. "That they may believe you, you must say it as obscurely as possible, just like that, simply in hints. You must only give them a peep of the truth, just enough to tantalise them. They'll tell a story better than ours, and of course they'll believe themselves more than they would us, and you know, it's better than anything, better than anything. Let me have it, it's splendid as it is. Give it to me, give it to me." And he kept trying to snatch the paper. Kirillov listened open‐eyed and seemed to be trying to reflect, but he seemed beyond understanding now. "Damn it all!" Pyotr Stepanovitch cried all at once, ill‐humouredly. "He hasn't signed it! Why are you staring like that? Sign!" "I want to abuse them," muttered Kirillov. He took the pen, however, and signed. "I want to abuse them." "Write 'Vive la République,' and that will be enough." "Bravo!" Kirillov almost bellowed with delight. "Vive la République démocratique, sociale et universelle ou la mort." "No, that's not it. Liberté, égalité, fraternité ou la mort. There, that's better, that's better." He wrote it gleefully under his signature. "Enough, enough," repeated Pyotr Stepanovitch. "Stay, a little more. I'll sign it again in French, you know. De Kirillov, gentilhomme russe et citoyen du monde. Aha!" He went off in a peal of laughter. No, stay, I found something better than all. Eureka! Gentilhomme séminariste russe et citoyen du monde civilisé. That's better than any. He jumped up from the sofa and suddenly, with a rapid gesture, snatched up the revolver from the window, ran with it into the next room, and closed the door behind him. Pyotr Stepanovitch stood for a moment, pondering and gazing at the door. If he does it at once, perhaps he'll do it, but if he begins thinking, nothing will come of it. Meanwhile he took up the paper, sat down and looked at it again. The wording of the document pleased him again. What's needed for the moment? What's wanted is to throw them all off the scent and keep them busy for a time. The park? There's no park in the town, and they'll guess it's Skvoreshniki of themselves. But while they are arriving at that, time will be passing. Then the search will take time too, then when they find the body it will prove that the story is true, and it will follow that it's all true, that it's true about Fedka too. And Fedka explains the fire, the Lebyadkins, so that it was all being hatched here at Filipov's while they overlooked it and saw nothing. That will quite turn their heads. They will never think of the quintet, Shatov and Kirillov and Fedka and Lebyadkin, and why they killed each other. That will be another question for them. Oh, damn it all! I don't hear the shot." Though he had been reading and admiring the wording of it, he had been listening anxiously all the time, and he suddenly flew into a rage. He looked anxiously at his watch. It was getting late, and it was fully 10 minutes since Kirillov had gone out. Snatching up the candle, he went to the door of the room where Kirillov had shut himself up. He was just at the door when the thought struck him that the candle had burnt out, that it would not last another 20 minutes, and that there was no other in the room. He took hold of the candle and listened warily. He did not hear the slightest sound. He suddenly opened the door and lifted up the candle. Something uttered a roar and rushed at him. He slammed the door with all his might and pressed his weight against it, but all sounds died away, and again there was death‐like stillness. He stood for a long while irresolute, with the candle in his hand. He had been able to see very little in the second he held the door open, but he had caught a glimpse of the face of Kirillov standing at the other end of the room by the window, and the savage fury with which the latter had rushed upon him. Pyotr Stepanovitch started, rapidly set the candle on the table, made ready his revolver, and retreated on tiptoe to the farthest corner of the room, so that if Kirillov opened the door and rushed up to the table with the revolver, he would still have time to be the first to aim and fire. Pyotr Stepanovitch had by now lost all faith in the suicide. He was standing in the middle of the room thinking, flashed like a whirlwind through Pyotr Stepanovitch's mind. And the room was dark and horrible too. He roared and rushed at me. There are two possibilities. Either I interrupted him at the very second when he was pulling the trigger, or he was standing planning how to kill me. Yes, that's it, he was planning it. He knows I won't go away without killing him if he funks it himself, so that he would have to kill me first to prevent my killing him. And again there is silence. I am really frightened. He may open the door all of a sudden. The nuisance of it is that he believes in God like any priest. He won't shoot himself for anything. There are lots of these people nowadays who've come to it of themselves. A rotten lot. Oh, damn it, the candle, the candle! It'll go out within a quarter of an hour for certain. I must put a stop to it. Come what may, I must put a stop to it. Now I can kill him. With that document here no one would think of my killing him. I can put him in such an attitude on the floor with an unloaded revolver in his hand that they'd be certain he'd done it himself. Ach, damn it, how is one to kill him? If I open the door he'll rush out again and shoot me first. Damn it all, he'll be sure to miss." He was in agonies, trembling at the necessity of action and his own indecision. At last he took up the candle and again approached the door with the revolver held up in readiness. He put his left hand, in which he held the candle, on the door handle. But he managed awkwardly. The handle clanked, there was a rattle and a creak. "He will fire straight away," flashed through Pyotr Stepanovitch's mind. With his foot he flung the door open violently, raised the candle, and held out the revolver. But no shot nor cry came from within. There was no one in the room. He started. The room led nowhere. There was no exit, no means of escape from it. He lifted the candle higher and looked about him more attentively. There was certainly no one. He called Kirillov's name in a low voice, then again louder. No one answered. Can he have got out by the window? The casement in one window was, in fact, open. Absurd! He couldn't have got away through the casement. Pyotr Stepanovitch crossed the room and went up to the window. He couldn't possibly. All at once he turned round quickly and was aghast at something extraordinary. Against the wall facing the windows on the right of the door stood a cupboard. On the right side of this cupboard, in the corner formed by the cupboard and the wall, stood Kirillov, and he was standing in a very strange way. Motionless, perfectly erect, with his arms held stiffly at his sides, his head raised and pressed tightly back against the wall in the very corner, he seemed to be trying to conceal and efface himself. Everything seemed to show that he was hiding, yet somehow it was not easy to believe it. Pyotr Stepanovitch was standing a little sideways to the corner and could only see the projecting parts of the figure. He could not bring himself to move to the left to get a full view of Kirillov and solve the mystery. His heart began beating violently, and he felt a sudden rush of blind fury. He started from where he stood, and, shouting and stamping with his feet, he rushed to the horrible place. But when he reached Kirillov he stopped short again, still more overcome, horror stricken. What struck him most was that in spite of his shout and his furious rush, the figure did not stir, did not move in a single limb, as though it were of stone or of wax. The pallor of the face was unnatural, the black eyes were quite unmoving, and were staring away at a point in the distance. Pyotr Stepanovitch lowered the candle and raised it again, lighting up the figure from all points of view and scrutinising it. He suddenly noticed that, although Kirillov was looking straight before him, he could see him and was perhaps watching him out of the corner of his eye. Then the idea occurred to him to hold the candle right up to the wretch's face, to scorch him and see what he would do. He suddenly fancied that Kirillov's chin twitched and that something like a mocking smile passed over his lips, as though he had guessed Pyotr Stepanovitch's thought. He shuddered and, beside himself, clutched violently at Kirillov's shoulder. Then something happened so hideous and so soon over that Pyotr Stepanovitch could never afterwards recover a coherent impression of it. He had hardly touched Kirillov when the latter bent down quickly and with his head knocked the candle out of Pyotr Stepanovitch's hand. The candlestick fell with a clang on the ground, and the candle went out. At the same moment he was conscious of a fearful pain in the little finger of his left hand. He cried out, and all that he could remember was that, beside himself, he hit out with all his might and struck 3 blows with the revolver on the head of Kirillov, who had bent down to him and had bitten his finger. At last he tore away his finger and rushed headlong to get out of the house, feeling his way in the dark. He was pursued by terrible shouts from the room. "Directly, directly, directly, directly!" 10 times, but he still ran on, and was running into the porch when he suddenly heard a loud shot. Then he stopped short in the dark porch and stood deliberating for 5 minutes. At last he made his way back into the house. But he had to get the candle. He had only to feel on the floor on the right of the cupboard for the candlestick. But how was he to light the candle? There suddenly came into his mind a vague recollection. He recalled that when he had run into the kitchen the day before to attack Fedka, he had noticed in passing a large red box of matches in a corner on a shelf. Feeling with his hands, he made his way to the door on the left, leading to the kitchen, found it, crossed the passage, and went down the steps. On the shelf, on the very spot where he had just recalled seeing it, he felt in the dark a full, unopened box of matches. He hurriedly went up the steps again, without striking a light, and it was only when he was near the cupboard, at the spot where he had struck Kirillov with the revolver and been bitten by him, that he remembered his bitten finger, and at the same instant was conscious that it was unbearably painful. Clenching his teeth, he managed somehow to light the candle end, set it in the candlestick again, and looked about him. Near the open casement, with his feet towards the right-hand corner, lay the dead body of Kirillov. The shot had been fired at the right temple, and the bullet had come out at the top on the left, shattering the skull. There were splashes of blood and brains. The revolver was still in the suicide's hand on the floor. Death must have been instantaneous. After a careful look round, Pyotr Stepanovitch got up and went out on tiptoe, closed the door, left the candle on the table in the outer room, thought a moment, and resolved not to put it out, reflecting that it could not possibly set fire to anything. Looking once more at the document left on the table, he smiled mechanically and then went out of the house, still for some reason walking on tiptoe. He crept through Fedka's hole again and carefully replaced the posts after him. Section 3. Precisely at 10 minutes to 6, Pyotr Stepanovitch and Erkel were walking up and down the platform at the railway station beside a rather long train. Pyotr Stepanovitch was setting off, and Erkel was saying good‐bye to him. The luggage was in, and his bag was in the seat he had taken in a second‐class carriage. The first bell had rung already; they were waiting for the second. Pyotr Stepanovitch looked about him, openly watching the passengers as they got into the train. But he did not meet anyone he knew well. Only twice he nodded to acquaintances, a merchant whom he knew slightly, and then a young village priest who was going to his parish 2 stations away. Erkel evidently wanted to speak of something of importance in the last moments, though possibly he did not himself know exactly of what, but he could not bring himself to begin. He kept fancying that Pyotr Stepanovitch seemed anxious to get rid of him and was impatient for the last bell. "You look at every one so openly," he observed with some timidity, as though he would have warned him. "Why not? It would not do for me to conceal myself at present. It's too soon. Don't be uneasy. All I am afraid of is that the devil might send Liputin this way; he might scent me out and race off here." "Pyotr Stepanovitch, they are not to be trusted," Erkel brought out resolutely. "Liputin?" "None of them, Pyotr Stepanovitch." "Nonsense, they are all bound by what happened yesterday. There isn't one who would turn traitor. People won't go to certain destruction unless they've lost their reason." "Pyotr Stepanovitch, but they will lose their reason." Evidently that idea had already occurred to Pyotr Stepanovitch too, and so Erkel's observation irritated him the more. "You are not in a funk too, are you, Erkel? I rely on you more than on any of them. I've seen now what each of them is worth. Tell them to day all I've told you. I leave them in your charge. Go round to each of them this morning. Read them my written instructions to morrow or the day after, when you are all together and they are capable of listening again. And believe me, they will be by to morrow, for they'll be in an awful funk, and that will make them as soft as wax. The great thing is that you shouldn't be downhearted." "Ach, Pyotr Stepanovitch, it would be better if you weren't going away." "But I am only going for a few days. I shall be back in no time." "Pyotr Stepanovitch," Erkel brought out warily but resolutely, "what if you were going to Petersburg? Of course I understand that you are only doing what's necessary for the cause." "I expected as much from you, Erkel. If you have guessed that I am going to Petersburg, you can realise that I couldn't tell them yesterday, at that moment, that I was going so far for fear of frightening them. You saw for yourself what a state they were in. But you understand that I am going for the cause, for work of the first importance, for the common cause, and not to save my skin, as Liputin imagines." "Pyotr Stepanovitch, what if you were going abroad? I should understand. I should understand that you must be careful of yourself, because you are everything and we are nothing. I shall understand, Pyotr Stepanovitch." The poor boy's voice actually quivered. "Thank you, Erkel. Aie, you've touched my bad finger." Erkel had pressed his hand awkwardly; the bad finger was discreetly bound up in black silk. "But I tell you positively again that I am going to Petersburg, only to sniff round, and perhaps shall only be there for 24 hours, and then back here again at once. When I come back I shall stay at Gaganov's country place for the sake of appearances. If there is any notion of danger, I should be the first to take the lead and share it. If I stay longer in Petersburg I'll let you know at once, in the way we've arranged, and you'll tell them." The second bell rang. "Ah, then there's only 5 minutes before the train starts. I don't want the group here to break up, you know. I am not afraid, don't be anxious about me. I have plenty of such centres, and it's not much consequence. But there's no harm in having as many centres as possible. But I am quite at ease about you, though I am leaving you almost alone with those idiots. Don't be uneasy, they won't turn traitor, they won't have the pluck. Ha ha! You going to day too?" he cried suddenly in a quite different, cheerful voice to a very young man who came up gaily to greet him. "I didn't know you were going by the express too. Where are you off to? Your mother's?" The mother of the young man was a very wealthy landowner in a neighbouring province, and the young man was a distant relation of Yulia Mihailovna's and had been staying about a fortnight in our town. "No, I am going farther, to R. I've 8 hours to live through in the train. Off to Petersburg?" laughed the young man. "What makes you suppose I must be going to Petersburg?" said Pyotr Stepanovitch, laughing even more openly. The young man shook his gloved finger at him. "Well, you've guessed right," Pyotr Stepanovitch whispered to him mysteriously. "I am going with letters from Yulia Mihailovna and have to call on 3 or 4 personages, as you can imagine. Bother them all, to speak candidly. It's a beastly job." "But why is she in such a panic? Tell me," the young man whispered too. "She wouldn't see even me yesterday. I don't think she has anything to fear for her husband, quite the contrary. He fell down so creditably at the fire, ready to sacrifice his life, so to speak." "Well, there it is," laughed Pyotr Stepanovitch. "You see she is afraid that people may have written from here already, that is, some gentlemen. The fact is, Stavrogin is at the bottom of it, or rather Prince K. Ech, it's a long story. I'll tell you something about it on the journey if you like, as far as my chivalrous feelings will allow me at least. This is my relation, Lieutenant Erkel, who lives down here." The young man, who had been stealthily glancing at Erkel, touched his hat. Erkel made a bow. "But I say, Verhovensky, 8 hours in the train is an awful ordeal. Berestov, the colonel, an awfully funny fellow, is travelling with me in the first class. He is a neighbour of ours in the country, and his wife is a Garin, née de Garin, and you know that he is a very decent fellow. He's got ideas, too. He's only been here a couple of days. He's passionately fond of whist. Couldn't we get up a game, eh? I've already fixed on a fourth. Pripulov, our merchant from T , with a beard, a millionaire, I mean it, a real millionaire, you can take my word for it. I'll introduce you. He is a very interesting money bag. We shall have a laugh." "I shall be delighted. And I am awfully fond of cards in the train. But I am going second class." "Nonsense, that's no matter. Get in with us. I'll tell them directly to move you to the first class. The chief guard would do anything I tell him. What have you got? A bag? A rug?" "First rate. Come along." Pyotr Stepanovitch took his bag, his rug, and his book, and at once and with alacrity transferred himself to the first class. Erkel helped him, the third bell rang. "Well, Erkel." Hurriedly and with a preoccupied air Pyotr Stepanovitch held out his hand from the window for the last time. "You see, I am sitting down to cards with them." "Why explain, Pyotr Stepanovitch? I understand it all." "Well, au revoir." Pyotr Stepanovitch turned away suddenly on his name being called by the young man, who wanted to introduce him to his partners. And Erkel saw nothing more of Pyotr Stepanovitch. He returned home very sad. Not that he was alarmed at Pyotr Stepanovitch's leaving them so suddenly, but he had turned away from him so quickly when that young swell had called to him, and he might have said something different to him, not au revoir, or at least have pressed his hand more warmly. That last was bitterest of all. Something else was beginning to gnaw in his poor little heart, something which he could not understand himself yet, something connected with the evening before. End of Chapter 6. Recording by Expatriate in Bangor, Maine.